It's important to know about lead-based paint.
Like smoking on the sunshine.
The game is called lawn darts.
The 1970s were a time of innovation and inventions, and many of the household products that were popular and happily used back then were also health hazards, and some were even extremely dangerous. With minimal technology, there was no way of knowing these things. These are some of the risky household products from the 1970s. In the 1970s, asbestos insulation was a common structural feature in home ceilings and tiles, mostly used because of its heat resistance, durability, and fireproofing properties. It was widely advertised and could be found in almost every home. Because of its popularity, it was used in construction, automotive, and other industries, especially in the 60s and 70s. Not only was it an insulator against fire, but it was also easy to clean. However, when the material began to age, it started to shed its fibers. These were tiny particles that became airborne, and when inhaled over a period of time, they caused health problems like asbestosis, chronic lung conditions, and also mesothelioma, a rare form of highly aggressive cancer that destroyed the lining of the abdomen, lungs, and heart. These diseases emerged in the 1900s but were only discovered because of asbestos exposure in the 70s. To regulate its usage, the Clean Air Act was made, and it protected workers from asbestos exposure. By the late 1980s, the use of asbestos had been banned in several countries altogether. Buildings that had that material were renovated or demolished, and alternatives like fiberglass and foam became the popular option. Lead paint emerged in the 19th century and quickly earned popularity as an upgrade from other options. It was preferred because of its vibrant colors and durability, and its moisture resistance. It could resist corrosion and dried up quickly. It was no wonder that it was adopted for both residential and industrial use. It was excellent for all kinds of materials, and even when its dangers were brought to light in the early 1900s, the popularity remained. Cases of lead poisoning continued to go on the rise and soon became a concern, and when it began to age, it formed particles that would go airborne and cause serious health issues, including lead poisoning, fetal development issues, and cognitive behavioral problems in children. It also caused brain damage, learning disabilities, and developmental delays, along with a host of other problems. The U.S. Lead-Based Paint Poisoning Prevention Act of 1971 led to the phasing out of the paint, and in 1978 it was banned completely in the United States and most European countries. Polyurethane foams were a breakthrough in the world of comfort and widely used because of their versatility. They were used in furniture cushions, mattresses, automotive parts, and other insulation applications. Lightweight and flexible was an added advantage, and it was first created in the 1930s and used in the Second World War. By the 60s and 70s, it was in every home in various industries, but it did come with a few issues. It was highly flammable, and even the smallest of heat from a cigarette could ignite the mattress, leading to a fire outbreak. It emitted a toxic organic fume while on fire and could cause severe lung damage, respiratory issues, and irritations of the eyes and skin. Despite the safety issues, it was still widely used for a while, and manufacturers attempted to solve the problem by adding fire-resistant chemicals and reducing emissions. Lawn darts, also known as jarts, were popular and entertaining backyard fun. It wasn't exactly an Olympic sport, but it was competitive. The outdoor game became popular in the 70s and 80s, where players would throw large darts with a sharp metal tip into hoops, landing them inside the circle from their position. The game seemed to be harmless at first, but eventually got dangerous, especially with children. Due to the weight of the dart and the sharpness of the tip, it could inflict life-threatening injuries. Because of this, the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission took up the issue, and by December of 1988, lawn darts were banned. Modern jarts have evolved, consisting of rounded rubber ball tips where the sharp pointer used to be. Some homes in the past were built over uranium-rich soil or places where rock formations were vulnerable to an accumulation of radon. Radon's a naturally occurring radioactive gas caused by the breakdown of uranium in the soil. It's colorless and odorless and could seep through the cracks in a foundation, accumulating in a not well-ventilated area. Recognition of the hazard began in the 70s and 80s, and one major incident that brought awareness was that of Stanley Watrous, a construction worker whose radiation levels set off the detector. Upon thorough examination, it was found that his home basement had 1,000 times more than the safety limit, and this led to widespread testing and increased awareness. Radon still remains a source of concern today, especially for old homes that are built in mineral-rich lands. Pesticides containing DDT were widely used in many gardens because of their effectiveness in agriculture. It was popular in the 40s, and then in the 60s, homeowners used it in their gardens to protect fruits and veggies from the damage of insects. It was effective against a whole variety of pests, but the chemical was also found to contribute to environmental and underground water contamination, greatly impacting local wildlife. It eliminated both harmful and non-harmful insects like bees and birds, and humans who were exposed to the chemical either through skin contact, ingestion, or inhalation stood a chance of acquiring issues like cancer, infertility, and developmental problems in kids. The book Silent Spring in 1962 put more emphasis on the dangers, and this, along with other findings, helped to facilitate a ban in 1972. Remember the time when mercury thermometers were used to measure your body temperature, as well as industrial and environmental applications? Invented in the early 1700s, they were adopted through the 20th century. Mercury thermometers were standard in homes, hospitals, labs, and other settings because of their accuracy. The liquid in the tube would expand and contract consistently with changes in temperature while maintaining liquid form. But they also posed a health risk due to the toxicity of the mercury vapor. It was highly toxic, whether by contact, ingestion, or inhalation, and at a high temperature, the glass could become vulnerable. Exposure would affect the lungs, kidneys, and nervous system and distort development in children, causing neurological damage. Broken and disposed of thermometers would contaminate the environment and make it unsafe for the wildlife. They were banned in the 2000s and slowly replaced by digital, alcohol, and infrared thermometers. Vinyl chloride in plastic products became popular in the early 20th century, a chemical compound used to form PVC. PVC is used in a wide variety of products, from pipes and window frames to other construction materials, to even children's toys, food packaging, and more. The dangers began to emerge in the mid-20th century in connections to cancer of the liver and immune system suppression, along with other health issues. The chemical easily contaminated the air and water and was difficult to recycle, so it was releasing harmful chemicals into the environment. In 1974, the U.S. government began to take action on the exposure to vinyl chloride, and while PVC is still in use today, there are regulatory changes to minimize exposure, both to people and the environment. When the non-stick Teflon cookware hit the market in the 1940s, it was a game changer, and everybody wanted Teflon cookware because of its non-stick properties, which was a huge problem with other cookware of the time. The coating on the surface made cooking and cleaning easy, as food materials were effortlessly removed. The cookware sold by the millions, and by the 60s and 70s, Teflon became a kitchen staple, allowing even burnt food to slide easily off the cookware. It's safe to say that they were a chef's best friend, but that all ended in the early 2000s when health concerns emerged. It was found that the coating, when exposed to temperatures about 500 degrees Fahrenheit and above, began to break down and release toxic fumes that would cause flu-like symptoms. This was nicknamed the Teflon flu. To add to the problem, another chemical in the cookware was discovered and associated with numerous health issues, including cancer. After conducting necessary testing and pressure from consumers and health agencies, Teflon stopped the use of the coating, and while safer nonstick cookware is available today, it's advised to avoid high heat, though many have opted to purchase it without any coating at all. When CFCs were first introduced in the 30s as a safe alternative to sulfur dioxide and ammonia for refrigeration, it seemed like an advancement in science. The newfound gas was in almost everything from hairspray to deodorant. However, chlorofluorocarbons in aerosol turned out to be the bigger problem than consumers had hoped for. In the 70s, it was discovered that CFCs had a damaging effect on the ozone layer, and research gave credence to a groundbreaking study that showed how the depletion of the ozone layer allowed in more UVB radiation to reach the Earth's surface and increase the possibility of skin cancer, cataracts, and other health issues. This led to the banning of CFCs and aerosol products in 1978, but it wasn't until the 90s and early 2000s that CFCs phased out of use in air conditioning systems, aerosol, and refrigerant. Electric heaters without safety features were common in households during the mid-20th century and designed to provide warmth in the cold, but the problem with the design is they lacked essential safety mechanisms like an automatic shutoff when the temperature got too hot. This would lead to fires and burns, and the positioning of the heater became another fault. It was usually placed near flammable materials like carpet, curtains, and furniture. There were also minimal heat guards that made it easy to get a burn from mistakenly touching the heater. Numerous complaints about burns, fires, and faulty wiring, along with carbon monoxide emission, had caused respiratory issues, so much so that manufacturers and regulators implemented better features, adding automatic shutoffs to reduce the risk of fire. Other features include heat guards and casings to make it friendly for children and pets, along with thermostats to gauge the temperature. Dangerous models were recalled over the years, and unsafe ones were phased out by the 80s and 90s. Many homes in the mid-20th century had furniture made from particle board, and despite the aesthetics of the particle board, there was one problem with its construction, which was formaldehyde in particle board furniture. The use of these chemicals led to the release of formaldehyde gas, which contributed to poor indoor air quality and irritated the eyes, nose, skin, and throat. Long-term exposure was linked to severe health issues like cancer. The risk of exposure became widespread, and action was taken to make sure that manufacturers were compliant with set safety standards. Other alternatives like phenylformaldehyde and non-formaldehyde adhesives are available in various industries. Open flame gas stoves were once a staple in the American kitchen and have been in use since the 19th century. They could be found in many homes and fueled by natural gas or propane. It became an alternative to wood burning, which required fresh logs chopped of wood and coal supplies. The open flame gas stove didn't only warm the home, it provided direct heat for cooking. The downside was the gas was the accidental fire hazard, especially when flammable materials like carpets, curtains, and other sources of fuel were nearby. Leaks would be frequent and could easily spread into nearby homes, and sometimes causing a massive explosion, not to mention poisoning from poorly ventilated homes. Several developments have been made to the stove in modern times with the addition of safety features like the electric ignition, automatic shutoffs, detectors, and flame failure devices, which improve energy efficiency, environmental impact, and safety. Maybe you've even heard of flammable baby pajamas. Yep, they were so light and flammable that they easily caught fire. From the late 40s and into the 60s, children's pajamas and sleepwear was made from untreated fabric like cotton, which could be comfortable but also easily catch fire. They didn't stand a chance in open flames, and as awareness grew, cases of real-life burns sparked an outcry for safer materials, and this would lead to the Flammable Fabric Act of 1953. All children's sleepwear had to be flame-resistant, and chemicals like tris were initially used but later found to be carcinogenic and banned in 1977. Today, many sleepwears are made from inherently flame-resistant materials like polyester to reduce the risk of burns. In the early 1940s, arsenic in pressure-treated wood was common, acting as a chemical preservative for protecting the wood from early decay, rot, and insect infestation. It was built for outdoor structures like playgrounds, picnic tables, and benches, and gave the pressure-plated wood a physical form called CCA. In the early 2000s, things took a turn when it was discovered that arsenic was a known carcinogen, and long-term exposure could lead to cancer as well as damage to the kidneys, lungs, and nervous system. As regulatory bodies came together in 2003 to set standards of use, it ultimately led to the decline in the use of arsenic for treating wood to minimize health and environmental risk. During the 1970s energy crisis, unventilated kerosene heaters became an alternative for heating up the home, especially because they were cheap and easy to carry. Popular in rural areas and off-grid places that had limited access to central heating, they were used during a power outage and were effective, but also posed significant health risks because of the high concentration of carbon monoxide released while burning the fuel. The colorless and odorless gas led to respiratory issues like asthma and bronchitis, and the heaters also depleted the oxygen in the room, leading to hypoxia and suffocation. They faced scrutiny from public health agencies and government bodies, leading to a shift towards more efficient and safe heating alternatives like the electric space heater and vented gas heaters that came after. If you're unfamiliar with mothballs, they were white crystalline solids obtained from coal tar and petroleum. Mothballs containing naphthalene were used as deodorants and to protect clothing against moth larvae. They've been in use in many parts of the world since the mid-20th century. People would store their winter clothing in boxes with the mothballs to preserve them from being destroyed by moths. The decline of popularity and use of the mothballs began when it was discovered that vapor from the chemical was carcinogenic, causing respiratory issues and fatalities, and damage to internal organs if ingested mistakenly by children. The mothballs phased out with time and were replaced with natural alternatives like cedar chips, lavender, and herbal sachets. There was a time when aluminum wiring was used for residential buildings during the 60s and 70s when contractors needed an alternative to copper, which was very in demand and in short supply. Aluminum was cheaper and in abundance and felt like a great option for electrical circuits until several moments proved that they posed a safety risk. Aluminum can expand and contract more than copper when heated through an electrical current, and over time that expansion and contraction would cause wires to lose integrity and overheat, resulting in fires. Aluminum was generally softer and could easily be damaged during installation, not to mention its vulnerability to corrosion when in contact with other metals. As reports of electrical fires linked to aluminum emerged, it also led to regulation and a decline of use, except in certain cases where the lightweight property is required. Remember when carpets were treated with toxic chemicals for various reasons like stain resistance, durability, and flame retardation? In the 1950s through to the 80s, carpets were trendy, and it was common to treat them with chemicals to improve their durability. Over time, the chemicals would cause significant air pollution, especially in poorly ventilated homes that caused breathing problems, allergic reactions, irritations, and more. Long-term exposure caused hormonal disruption and developmental delays in children with the risk of cancer. Rising awareness of the chemicals in carpet led to its ban, while some simply phased them out as relics in home trends. Which of these household products have you used in the past? Let me know all about it in the comments down below. You should also like this video and subscribe to the channel. That way you never miss another memory in the future. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.